Hi everyone. It's been a very long time. I know there have been multiple reasons for that. I felt compelled to make a video today while taking my lunch break. I watched a Black Pigeon Speaks video where he talks about the decline of atheism. And I felt compelled to respond for a few reasons. One is because I would consider myself to be a somewhat calm and rational atheist. Black Pigeon Speaks video was centered around a lot of the more noisy, aggressive, abrasive atheists out there on the atheist community. He spent a lot of time talking about the amazing atheist, or as he put it, the amazing atheist. That guy doesn't speak for me or for really anyone but himself, I think. So I think it's important for some of us to voice our opinions about the piece. He ended it in a very interesting way. I think he was looking to head off any discussion about the rationality of theism or atheism by saying the only real rebuttal to this video could be one challenging the statistics, the global statistics that atheism is in the decline. Well, he set himself up for a very good victory there. Well done, sir. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and it's sadly not the case, because really, I understand what he's trying to say, that this is what is happening, and the forecasts are that the trend is going to continue and that we are going to become an increasingly religious species over the next 50 years or so. And he even mentioned some of the demographics there of that. In other words, the increasing Muslim demographics by birth rates, also some of the increasing Christian populations in places like Russia and China. And so, yes, this is happening. That seems clear to me, although there may be some slow increase in atheism in the West. I think that's going to be a reversed trend at some point in the future. Sadly, however, the discussion should be, and now he framed it as the discussion is not about which is better, atheism or religiosity, but the discussion should be which is accurate, which represents the nature of our existence. I realize there's going to be plenty of salty atheists who are going to come out and scream about this video, and he's sort of already set himself up to claim victory over those people by the way he's made the video. But unfortunately, I think for the human species, we are a highly irrational species, and the Enlightenment and other movements throughout our course of history have made some strides in getting us a little bit more rational, a little bit more evidence-based, a little bit more philosophical about the belief systems that we hold. But we can slide back at any time, and I think, unfortunately, that is the potential for this fast forward of an increasingly religious species. I'm not necessarily even here to make the case that atheism is the rational case. Obviously, I believe it is, through my own, thoughts and research and hot tub deliberations and that sort of thing. However, one thing is clear. The majority of the religions out there and atheism are mutually exclusive. So, the goal should be to believe in what's true. That should be the goal. And then you formulate your morals and everything else around whatever is accurate reflection of the nature of our reality. So it sort of stands to reason just by the numbers that the majority of people believe in the wrong thing. If these things all have mutually exclusive characteristics to many different religions and atheism itself, a lot of people believe the wrong thing, and therefore have a tendency to base their morals and their systems of government and everything else around things that may not necessarily be true in the first place. Many people have died, many people have been oppressed, etc., as a result of faulty belief systems throughout our human history. And I've often said on my channel, if you're going to suggest that we base our system of law around a system of belief, you better be able to demonstrate that your system of belief demonstrates an accurate representation of the nature of our existence, or I think we should pass. And I still think that that's a reasonable position to hold. What concerns me about the demographic shift that's taking place globally, and I may not be alive to see the real nasty ramifications that I think are in potential here, but it still concerns me nonetheless. And it also makes me a little bit sad at our species, that we can't that we can't continue to evolve. Because even the Reformed, I would agree with what Black Pigeon said about Christianity, the Reformed version, that it is good to live in the Western world that has its basis in Judeo-Christian values. The majority of my clients are all believing Christians. They treat me very well. It's a good society to live in where atheists and gays are not thrown off buildings or stoned to death, etc., etc. But that is a Reformed version of that religion. I think we should keep that in mind. There are other religions who have been semi-reformed and then have slid backwards. And I think that potential exists. Now, left unadulterated in the West, I don't think that would happen. But what concerns me about the shifting demographics is I see a chance here, an opportunity for there to be a continuation of this seeming lockstep battle between major religions. If you look at these demographics, it doesn't take much imagination to see another version of the Crusades or something, where one religion is battling down another religion, and it's happening currently in lots of places where Christians are being slaughtered and being oppressed, where these demographic shifts. And then, if one of the major demographic locations is China, there is some geopolitical / religious potentials for major human battles in the future. And again, the basis for a lot of these battles simply must be irrationality, because some group is wrong and they believe in the wrong thing based on probably poor evidence, because most of the arguments for religion are based on, at some point, a level of a large degree of faith, not rational exposition, not rational investigation of the empirical evidence that we have. And that makes me sad. But it is what it is. I mean, Black Pigeon is right. If those statistics carry out the way they are today and the way they're projected to continue, that is what's going to happen. He's definitely correct about that. And it's unfortunate that so many atheists, have become this aggressive, abrasive version, caricature really, of what should be rationally minded skeptics who say, you've presented evidence here, but it's not enough to convince me. But even worse than that is that a lot of the atheist community has seemed to embrace just another form of religion, which is a belief in large government, socialist, Marxist type doctrines, and a moral relativism, which I think is a huge mistake. That's the biggest problem that I have with my fellow atheists, is this moral relativism. I do believe that there is a way that a person can derive a set of secular moral guidelines that are pretty rationally defensible. And I've had many arguments with atheists on my channel several years ago now, where we got back to this idea of secular objective ethics. And all these people want to talk about how everything is relative and everything is subjective, and yet they have demands, all these other pronouncements where they're making judgments on other people's actions, but saying that they believe that everything is subjective. And you are inconsistent. And it's not evidence for objective morality to say that people behave as though morality is objective. But it does illuminate, I think, a clear inconsistency in someone who declares from the mountaintops that morality is only subjective, but then makes all these moral pronouncements for everybody else. You cannot do that and remain consistent if you believe that everyone has their own set of subjective moral ethics. As soon as you take it to the community, you're kind of indicating that you have somewhere a belief in objective standards. And maybe that's just a holdover from religiosity, but it is a problem, and the moral relativism is a problem, and the lack of people to be able to make any kind of clear and concise rational arguments is a problem. And unfortunately, I see a real opportunity here for our species to regress to days of brutality and savagery as major world religious systems seek dominance over one another. And I made a video a while ago, I haven't uploaded it, where I talked about all of the major religious systems, all of governments, a lot of these organizations, social justice type organizations, feminist organizations, even organizations seeking to a resolution to a medical concern and things like that. Ultimately, if I look at them very carefully, what I see is a lot of people just trying to manipulate and control other human beings without a moral foundation. They just find a way to argue for it without actually having a really good actual argument for it. And I think that's largely the case. And I wish people could keep their eyes on their own paper and live their own life with respect for other people's right to liberty and right to self-determination and that sort of thing. And religion often flies in the face of that. And again, the Reformed version of the Western traditions, I'm all for. That's great. But the doctrine is still the doctrine. I mean, I think it was Jesus who said he didn't come here to change anything in the Old Testament. So is it possible in the face of a major world religious war for Christians to harken back to a more fundamentalist vision for their religion and say this was the error of our ways? This was how we succumbed to secularism in the West. We must return to the traditions of old because it allowed this other religion to gain in popularity and force, and now we wouldn't have faced this existential crisis had we kept to the fundamentals. I think it's all very highly possible. Please let me know what you think. Thanks as always for watching.